Noah Brown has lived a life full of challenges, but it's the struggles behind the scenes that many don't know about. On the show Alaskan Bush People, Noah's life appeared to be filled with adventure and the beauty of the wild, but beneath that rugged exterior there was an emotional battle that viewers weren't privy to. His story, while inspiring to some, is filled with heartbreak that few understand. When the cameras weren't rolling, Noah faced personal turmoil that no one could see. His life was not just about surviving in the Alaskan wilderness but also dealing with pain that comes from personal loss and family struggles. This hidden side of Noah's life is something that most people, even his closest fans, don't know. He wasn't just a person living off the land, he was someone carrying a heavy emotional burden. In his early years, Noah was introduced to the harsh realities of life, not just from nature but also from within his own family. Growing up, his father Billy Brown was a central figure, and his family's unique way of living in Alaska was both a source of pride and a difficult responsibility. The stress of living in such extreme conditions created tension, which over time affected the entire Brown family. But it wasn't just the stress of living off the grid that was tough on Noah, it was the emotional weight of the loss he suffered that truly changed him. As time passed, Noah's personal life began to unravel. Behind the scenes, he was going through things that no one could see from the outside. He faced the kind of heartache that no one expects to happen to them. His family, while close-knit, also had its own set of problems, and Noah, like many, was left trying to hold everything together. But even the strongest people break under pressure, and Noah was no exception. Noah Brown's struggles weren't just about his family life or the pressures of being on TV. They went deeper. It was the constant pressure of being in the spotlight while trying to deal with a personal crisis that made everything more complicated. While the world watched him on TV, no one truly understood the pain he was carrying behind closed doors. The weight of everything was on his shoulders, and while he tried to appear strong, it was clear that there were things he just couldn't escape from. Over time, the viewers began to notice a change in Noah. He became quieter, less involved in the high-energy moments of the show. There was something different about him, something that wasn't easily explained. This shift sparked curiosity among fans. Why was he pulling away? What was really going on with him? But despite their questions, Noah kept most of his pain hidden, leading many to wonder if the show was only scratching the surface of his life. Behind the cameras there was an untold story that few knew about, and this left many people wanting to know more. What was it that changed Noah? What was happening in his personal life that had such a strong impact on him? It wasn't until much later that fans started to understand the full extent of Noah's struggles. It became clear that the emotional toll of dealing with personal loss and family challenges was far greater than anyone had imagined. The tragedy that he went through was a life-changing event that shaped the person he is today. While Noah Brown's life on Alaskan Bush People might seem adventurous and full of excitement to the average viewer, his journey behind the scenes was filled with heartache. His story shows that sometimes the toughest battles are the ones that can't be seen. The pain he carried was a part of him that until recently remained hidden from the world. His life wasn't just about surviving in the wilderness but also about surviving the emotional wilderness that came with his own personal tragedy. This is a side of Noah's life that many people weren't aware of, and it's something that few could understand without walking in his shoes. The mystery behind what Noah was going through kept people guessing, and for good reason. His pain was real, and for a long time he kept it to himself, perhaps out of a sense of pride or a desire to keep his personal struggles private. Whatever the reason, his fans were left with more questions than answers, and the curiosity about what happened to him only grew with time. Noah Brown's life is a reminder that not everything is as it seems. Even those who appear to have it all together can be battling demons that no one can see. His story, filled with pain and resilience, is one that shows the strength it takes to face unimaginable loss. Despite the heartbreak, Noah continued on, showing a side of him that was far more complex than the image the show portrayed. His struggles, though heartbreaking, are a testament to his strength and determination to keep going, even when life was anything but easy. In the end, Noah's journey is one of survival, not just in the wilds of Alaska but in the emotional wilderness that many people face. His heartbreaking tragedy wasn't just about what happened to him but also about how he managed to keep going in the face of adversity. His story reminds us that the most heartbreaking tragedies aren't always the ones we see, but the ones hidden deep inside. Noah Brown's life is a story of survival, but behind the adventure of living off the grid in Alaska, there are dark secrets that the world doesn't fully know. Fans of Alaskan Bush People have watched as he navigated life in the wilderness with his family, yet what most people didn't see were the hidden struggles that were far deeper than anyone could imagine. The moments shown on TV only gave a glimpse of his world, but what happened behind the cameras is a much more complex and heartbreaking story. The Brown family is known for their resilience, living in one of the harshest environments in the world. But despite their strength, Noah's life was not always as simple as it seemed on TV. Growing up in the wilds of Alaska, Noah faced challenges that many people could never even begin to understand. Life on the show was presented as an adventure, filled with wild animals, extreme weather, and a tight-knit family that stuck together through thick and thin. But under the surface, things were not always as perfect as they appeared. There was something darker, a secret struggle that Noah had to deal with that went unnoticed by most. For a long time, fans only saw Noah as the strong, capable member of the family, someone who was part of the team and helped keep things together. But behind the strong persona was a young man going through emotional battles that no one could see. His life wasn't just about living off the land, it was about coping with personal pain and loss that was impossible to escape. The world may have seen Noah as just another member of the Brown family, but he was carrying a weight that even his closest family members didn't fully understand. When you live in such a remote place, it's easy to feel isolated, even more so when you are dealing with personal tragedy. Noah's story is one of those tragedies. He wasn't just living in Alaska, he was living through a heartbreaking reality that affected every part of his life. While the world watched, Noah was silently struggling, trying to keep his pain hidden. But the more time passed, the more it became clear that Noah's journey was more complicated than anyone could have imagined. Fans began to notice subtle changes in his behavior, changes that hinted at something deeper. What many people didn't realize is that Noah wasn't just trying to survive the wilderness of Alaska. He was trying to survive something far more difficult: the emotional toll of loss. The tragedy he faced was not something you could see in the wilderness or on the surface of his interactions with his family. It was something buried deep inside him, a pain that lingered and affected every aspect of his life. This is where the true story of Noah Brown lies, not in his outdoor adventures, but in the quiet moments when he was forced to face his own personal demons. The curiosity surrounding Noah's story began to grow as people realized that there was more to his life than the show let on. Fans of Alaskan Bush People were left with many questions. Why was Noah becoming more withdrawn? Why was he so different from the energetic person viewers had first met? His emotional journey was not just something that could be summed up in a few episodes, it was an ongoing battle that took years to unfold. The mystery of his change sparked curiosity. What had happened to him? What was the source of the pain that seemed to be shaping his every move? What happened to Noah behind the scenes wasn't something that was shared easily with the public. His tragedy was a deeply personal experience, one that he had to carry on his own. He didn't want to share his pain with the world, and yet the world couldn't help but wonder what was happening. People were left speculating, guessing, and trying to piece together the parts of Noah's life that were kept in the dark. His behavior on and off the screen was sending signals that something wasn't right, and fans wanted answers. The curiosity about his life grew stronger as the years passed. Noah's emotional battle wasn't something he chose to talk about right away. For a long time, he kept everything bottled up, trying to handle it on his own. This made the mystery even more intriguing. What was it that Noah was going through? Why was he pulling away from the people closest to him? As the show went on, the changes in Noah became more apparent. The mystery of his personal life became a point of fascination for viewers, who were left wondering how such a strong and capable person could be facing such a hard time. The more Noah withdrew, the more people wanted to know what had caused the change. It was as if there was a veil over his life, and every time fans thought they were getting a glimpse into his world, they were met with more questions than answers. Why was Noah so different now? What had happened to him that made him seem so distant? These questions lingered in the minds of his fans, who had grown to love him and his family over the years. The tragedy that Noah was experiencing was not something that could be easily explained, and it was this uncertainty that kept people curious. As time passed, more pieces of Noah's story began to come to light. But even then, the full truth was hard to grasp. The pain he was dealing with was so much more than what could be shown on a reality TV show. It was about real-life challenges, family struggles, and personal loss that shaped him into the person he became. The curiosity around Noah's life is still strong today, as people continue to wonder what it was that truly changed him. His journey through personal pain was a reminder to everyone that life is not always as it seems. Noah Brown may have lived in one of the most beautiful and dangerous places on Earth, but the battles he faced in his heart were far more challenging than anything he experienced in the wilds of Alaska. His story is a powerful reminder that everyone has their own struggles, many of which go unseen. While viewers may have seen his strength and resilience on TV, the true story of Noah Brown's heartache is one that is still unfolding, leaving many to wonder what will happen next in his life. Noah Brown's life has always been portrayed as one of strength and survival, living off the land in Alaska with his family. Yet behind the wild adventures and the stunning beauty of the Alaskan wilderness, there is a darker side to his story. A side that no one really saw on the show Alaskan Bush People, a side that deals with personal tragedy, loss, and the emotional toll that came with it. Fans of the show often wonder how Noah could remain so strong in such harsh conditions, but what they didn't know was that the true challenge was not just surviving in the wild, but surviving the pain that haunted him. From the beginning of the show, Noah was seen as a young man with a big heart, eager to help his family and embrace the challenges of living in one of the most remote places in the world. His skills in building and living off the land made him a key member of the Brown family, and he became a fan favorite for his hard work and resilience. But despite the way he appeared on TV, Noah was carrying a deep burden that would eventually take its toll on him. The pain he faced was not visible to his fans, and it was not something that could easily be fixed. His tragedy was one that would change the course of his life forever. Noah Brown's heartache wasn't something that was clear to anyone watching the show. He had a way of hiding his emotions, keeping the sadness buried inside while trying to maintain the image of a strong, capable man. But as time went on, it became clear that the emotional weight he carried was more than he could handle. It wasn't just the rough lifestyle of living off the grid that wore him down, it was the personal loss he experienced, the kind of loss that changes you and leaves scars that can't be seen. For years, Noah tried to carry the burden alone. He did his best to keep up the appearance of a man who was unaffected by the hardships of life in Alaska. But behind closed doors, the pain was real, and it started to affect his relationships with those closest to him. His family, despite being supportive and loving, couldn't fully understand the depth of his sorrow. They were dealing with their own struggles, and Noah's silent suffering only added to the weight they all carried. What made things even more difficult was that Noah felt he had to protect them from his pain, not wanting to burden them further with his problems. But in doing so, he only isolated himself more, and the distance between him and his loved ones grew. It was not until later that the true extent of Noah's emotional struggle began to emerge. His fans were left in the dark for a long time, only seeing glimpses of his life on TV. But as time went on, Noah's personal battles became impossible to hide. His behavior began to change, and it was clear that something was wrong. The cheerful, hard-working young man they had seen on screen was becoming withdrawn and quiet. He was no longer as engaged with his family or the show. His fans started to notice the shift, but no one knew exactly what had caused it. The questions started to pile up. What was happening to Noah? What had changed? Why was he suddenly so different? This growing curiosity about Noah's life outside the show only intensified as the years went on. People who had followed the Brown family for so long couldn't help but wonder what was behind Noah's transformation. Was he just tired of the cameras, or was there something deeper, something more personal that was affecting him? Fans speculated about everything from his relationship with his family to his mental health. But the truth was, Noah's struggles went far beyond what anyone could have imagined. The tragedy that Noah faced was one that took time to reveal itself. It wasn't a sudden event, but rather a slow, painful process that affected him over time. This is what made it so difficult for people to understand. While Noah was dealing with the heartache, he didn't want to show it. He kept it inside, trying to stay strong and appear as if everything was fine. But as much as he tried to keep up the facade, the pain kept growing. His life was no longer just about surviving in the wilderness, it was about surviving emotionally, dealing with the trauma and grief that had taken hold of him. As Noah's story unfolded, more details began to emerge about what he had been going through. His personal tragedy was one that many people could relate to, but few truly understood. It was a story of loss and the impact it had on his life. The pain he felt wasn't something that could be fixed by simply getting away from the cameras or taking a break from the show. It was a deep emotional wound that would take time to heal. And as fans learned more about his journey, they began to appreciate the strength it took for Noah to keep going, even when it felt like everything was falling apart. The curiosity about Noah's life only grew as the years passed. People wanted to know more about what had happened to him. What had caused the change in his behavior? What was the tragedy that had so deeply affected him? It was clear that Noah was a private person, and he didn't want to share his pain with the world. But that only made the mystery more intriguing. Fans were left to wonder what had really happened to Noah and why he seemed so different from the person they had first seen on TV. As Noah's story continued to unfold, it became clear that his journey was far from over. His personal struggles were not something that could be easily solved or forgotten. They were a part of him, shaping who he was and how he saw the world. But through it all, Noah kept pushing forward. His journey of healing was just beginning, and while the world may not have seen everything he went through, they were starting to understand that his strength wasn't just about surviving in Alaska, it was about surviving the emotional battles that had defined his life. The mystery of Noah Brown's transformation will likely never be fully understood by those who watched his story from the outside. But it's a reminder that behind every public persona, there's a real person dealing with their own struggles. And for Noah, the journey of facing his personal tragedy and finding a way to heal is just one part of the larger story of survival, resilience, and the search for peace in a world that's often difficult to navigate. His tragedy, though heartbreaking, is a testament to the strength of the human spirit and the power of perseverance, even in the face of unimaginable pain. Noah Brown's life has always been filled with challenges, but behind the scenes, his personal struggles remained hidden from most of the world. The world saw Noah on Alaskan Bush People as a strong and determined individual, someone who could handle the extreme conditions of living in Alaska's wilds. What people didn't realize, however, was that there was so much more going on beneath the surface. The reality of his emotional battles, the heartache, and the weight of his personal losses were not something that could be easily captured by the cameras. His life, which many believed was all about surviving in the Alaskan wilderness, was in fact also about surviving a personal tragedy that would change him forever. The Brown family's lifestyle was all about strength, independence, and survival. But for Noah, life was never just about living off the land. It was about trying to navigate the deep emotional pain he felt, a pain that came from loss, grief, and a series of events that shaped the person he would become. Fans of the show saw him as part of the tight-knit Brown family, working together to overcome challenges and build a life in the wilderness. What they didn't see was the internal struggle Noah was fighting every day. His grief and emotional battles weren't something he was willing to show the world, and for a long time that left fans wondering what was really happening behind closed doors. In many ways, Noah's life was a balancing act. He had the love and support of his family, but at the same time he felt a deep loneliness, a weight that he couldn't escape. The wilderness was tough, but it wasn't the hardest part of Noah's life. It was dealing with the emotional scars of personal loss that proved to be the most difficult challenge he had to face. No matter how strong he was, the grief from his past continued to haunt him. It was a silent burden, one that Noah carried alone for much longer than he should have. As time went on, the changes in Noah became more noticeable. Fans who had followed him from the beginning could see that something was different, but they didn't know exactly what was happening. His behavior became more withdrawn, and he seemed to pull away from the rest of the family. This shift sparked a lot of curiosity. People wanted to know what had caused this change. Why was Noah suddenly so distant? What was going on in his life that was making him act this way? The curiosity around his personal life grew, and the mystery of what had changed in Noah became a topic of discussion among his fans. Noah was never one to openly talk about his emotions, and that made it even harder for people to understand what he was going through. For a long time, it seemed like Noah was shutting everyone out. His relationship with his family, which had once been so close and open, started to feel strained. He became more private, less involved in the everyday activities of the family. This made people even more curious about what was going on with him. The more he pulled away, the more questions people had. Fans began to wonder if there was something more to his story that they weren't seeing. They speculated about what had happened to Noah and why he seemed so different. The truth was, Noah was struggling with a deep personal tragedy that had affected him in ways no one could have predicted. The loss he experienced was something that he tried to keep hidden from the world, but it was something that shaped every part of his life. The pain he was feeling wasn't something that could be fixed with time or distraction. It was something that would stay with him for a long time, no matter how hard he tried to move past it. What made Noah's story so compelling was the mystery of what had truly happened to him. As time went on, the details of his life started to come to light, but even then, the full picture remained unclear. Fans were left to guess, to piece together the clues, to try and understand what had changed Noah so dramatically. His transformation wasn't something that happened overnight, and it wasn't something that could be easily explained. It was a slow, painful process, one that affected him in ways that were hard to put into words. But that's what made his story so interesting. It was filled with unanswered questions, with curiosity that made people want to know more. The more Noah withdrew, the more people wanted to understand what was happening to him. They wanted to know about the tragedy that had affected him so deeply. But the truth was, Noah wasn't ready to share those details with the world. He kept his emotions and his pain hidden for a long time, trying to deal with it on his own. This only added to the intrigue. Why wasn't he talking? What was he hiding? And most importantly, what was the cause of the deep sadness that seemed to be consuming him? For Noah, the challenge was not just about surviving in the Alaskan wilderness, it was about surviving the emotional wilderness he was trapped in. The loss he had experienced wasn't something that could be fixed by building a house or hunting for food. It was something that took time to heal, and the healing process was not an easy one. While Noah tried to keep his pain under wraps, it began to show in subtle ways. The fans who had watched him grow and develop over the years began to notice the change. They could see that Noah was different, but they didn't know why. This created a sense of suspense, a feeling of mystery that surrounded his character. The curiosity about Noah's personal life only grew as the years went on. People wanted answers, but Noah wasn't ready to share his story just yet. His private battles were not something that could be easily understood, and they certainly couldn't be explained in a few short episodes. It was clear that there was a lot more to Noah's life than what viewers had seen on TV. The true depth of his pain and the events that had shaped him remained a mystery for a long time, and that mystery only added to the fascination that fans had with his journey. Noah's story is one of personal growth, struggle, and the complex journey of dealing with deep emotional pain. His tragedy wasn't something that could be fixed by simply changing his environment or by receiving more support from his family. It was something that he had to face on his own, something that required him to confront the hardest parts of himself. His journey is still unfolding, and as more details come to light, the curiosity surrounding his life continues to grow. What happened to Noah Brown? What has he been through? These are questions that fans are still trying to answer, and the mystery surrounding his life only makes his story even more compelling. Noah Brown's journey is one that many people would find difficult to fully understand. For years, the world watched as he lived out his life on Alaskan Bush People, a show that presented the Brown family as strong, self-sufficient, and resilient. Noah was portrayed as a key member of the family, someone who could handle the challenges of living in the Alaskan wilderness. However, what viewers didn't see were the deep emotional struggles that Noah was going through behind the scenes. His life was far more complex than anyone could have guessed, and it was a life filled with pain, loss, and a constant battle to find peace. When Noah first appeared on the show, many people saw him as a hard-working, determined young man who could survive in some of the harshest conditions on Earth. He worked hard alongside his family to build a life in Alaska, and he quickly became a favorite among fans. His ability to adapt to the wilderness and his desire to help his family made him seem like the perfect example of strength and perseverance. But as time went on, it became clear that there was more to Noah's story than what was shown on TV. Behind his strong exterior, he was struggling with personal issues that no one could see. For years, Noah kept his struggles hidden. He tried to maintain the image of a strong, capable man who could handle anything that came his way. But this wasn't the full truth. The emotional toll of his personal tragedy was something that he couldn't hide forever. Fans started to notice changes in Noah's behavior. He became more withdrawn, more distant from his family, and less involved in the daily activities of the show. People began to wonder what was going on. Why was Noah acting so differently? What had caused him to pull away from everything and everyone he once seemed so close to? At first, there were only small signs of Noah's inner turmoil. He would disappear for long periods of time, and when he did appear on the show, he seemed distracted and distant. He wasn't his usual energetic self, and this left fans puzzled. Why was Noah acting this way? Had something happened to him? Was he tired of being on the show? These questions only added to the curiosity surrounding Noah's life. Fans speculated that there was something more to his story, something that was hidden behind the camera's lens. But no one knew for sure what was happening. The truth began to slowly unfold over time. It became clear that Noah was going through a personal tragedy that was much deeper than what people could see. It wasn't just the rough lifestyle of living in Alaska that was affecting him, it was the emotional weight he was carrying. His grief, his loss, and his inner turmoil were slowly taking a toll on him, and this became more apparent as time went on. The pain Noah was experiencing was not something that could be easily fixed by the beauty of Alaska or by being with his family. It was something that ran much deeper, something that was part of who he was. The emotional toll of his grief was not something that Noah could easily share with others. He was a private person by nature, and even though his family was there for him, Noah felt a deep sense of loneliness. He didn't want to burden his loved ones with his pain, so he kept it to himself, hoping that time would heal his wounds. But time didn't make the pain go away. Instead, it seemed to grow stronger as the years went by. Noah's internal struggle became harder to ignore, and as he withdrew further into himself, the curiosity about his life grew. Fans began to wonder what was really happening to Noah, and they wanted to know more about the tragedy that had changed him. Noah's withdrawal from the show and from his family didn't happen overnight. It was a slow process, and each day seemed to bring more distance between him and the world around him. This only deepened the mystery surrounding his life. What had happened to Noah that made him pull away? What was he going through that he couldn't share with the world? These questions lingered in the minds of his fans, who had grown to care about him over the years. The more Noah kept to himself, the more people wanted to know what was going on. The emotional pain that Noah was going through was not something that could be easily fixed. It was a deep personal tragedy that had affected him in ways that were hard for others to understand. His life was no longer just about surviving in the wilderness. It was about surviving the emotional turmoil that he was struggling with. The grief he was feeling was something that no one could fix for him. It was something he had to face on his own, and it was something that would take time to heal. As the mystery surrounding Noah's life deepened, fans began to ask more questions. What had caused Noah to change so much? Why was he acting so differently? The curiosity around his personal life continued to grow, and the answers seemed harder to find. Noah was still not ready to open up about his struggles, and this only added to the intrigue. What was it that had happened to him? What was he going through? These questions remained unanswered for a long time, leaving people to wonder about the true story behind Noah's transformation. It was clear that Noah's life had been marked by tragedy. His journey through grief and loss was something that most people could never fully understand. The pain he was feeling was not something that could be seen on the surface. It was something that affected him deeply, something that shaped his every decision and his every interaction with the world around him. As fans continued to follow his story, the mystery of what had happened to him remained at the forefront of their minds. What made Noah's story so compelling was the fact that it was a journey of healing, a journey that was still unfolding. His emotional battles were not something that could be solved quickly or easily. They were something that would take time, patience, and understanding. Noah was facing a long road ahead, one that was filled with challenges, but it was also a road that would lead him to a place of healing and self-discovery. The curiosity surrounding his life is still strong today, as fans continue to wonder how Noah will navigate the rest of his journey. His story is a reminder that sometimes the greatest battles are the ones we fight within ourselves. Noah's journey is one of resilience and strength, but it is also a story of vulnerability, pain, and the deep scars left by personal loss. As Noah continues to heal, his fans are left with more questions than answers, and the mystery of his life only continues to grow. What will Noah do next? How will he continue to navigate the challenges of his personal journey? These are questions that only time will answer, but for now, the curiosity about Noah's life remains as strong as ever. Noah Brown's story, as viewers have seen on Alaskan Bush People, has always been one of survival in the wild, but it's also much more than that. His personal life, full of struggle and quiet heartache, remained largely hidden from the public for years. Fans who followed him on the show could only see snippets of his life and could never fully understand the challenges he was facing behind the scenes. While the cameras captured his moments of triumph, building homes and working alongside his family, they couldn't capture the emotional toll that his personal experiences were having on him. This emotional battle was one Noah fought alone, and it left people questioning what was really going on in his life. The more viewers saw Noah struggling in the background, the more curiosity about his life and his true story grew. At first, Noah was seen as a young man who had it all figured out. He worked hard alongside his family, building a life off the grid in the harsh Alaskan wilderness. Fans admired his ability to adapt and survive in such a tough environment. He seemed to have a strong bond with his family, and they appeared to support each other no matter what challenges they faced. However, as time went on, a shift began to occur, and Noah became less involved. His once bright, determined persona began to fade into something quieter, more withdrawn. It was subtle at first, but the change didn't go unnoticed. Fans began to ask themselves why he had started to pull away. What had caused this shift in his behavior? Why did he seem to be withdrawing from his family and the show? It wasn't long before viewers began to realize that Noah's emotional struggles were far more than just a phase. He was not the same person he had been when the show first started. The person they had grown to know as a strong, hard-working individual was now a man dealing with deep personal pain. The pain wasn't something that could be easily seen from the outside. It wasn't something that would show up in a single moment on screen. It was a slow, creeping sadness that seemed to weigh down on Noah, and it was something he had to face on his own. But why did he keep it so hidden? Why didn't he share his feelings with his family or his fans? The truth was, Noah was struggling with a tragedy that had deeply affected him, and he wasn't ready to open up about it. The mystery surrounding Noah's life only deepened as time went on. Fans saw the change, but no one knew exactly what had caused it. Was it the pressures of living in such an isolated place? Was it something that had happened in his personal life that caused him to pull back from everything? The questions kept piling up, and the more Noah withdrew from the public eye, the more curious people became about what had truly happened to him. The suspense around his personal life grew with every episode, as fans became more and more eager to understand the emotional turmoil that was clearly affecting him. As Noah continued to live in the wilderness, away from the cameras, his personal story became even more of a mystery. Fans couldn't help but wonder what had caused such a drastic change in his personality. Was he simply overwhelmed by the isolation, or was there something much more serious behind the scenes that he wasn't sharing? Noah's story was no longer just about surviving in Alaska. It was about surviving something much deeper, something that had taken hold of him and made it harder for him to continue living the life he had once known. It was a pain that was harder to hide, and eventually it became impossible for Noah to maintain the image of a happy, unaffected individual. The more fans tried to understand what was happening with Noah, the more the curiosity grew. The questions started to come fast and furious. What had happened to him? Why was he so different? What had caused him to become so distant from his family and the world? It seemed like there was a hidden story that no one knew about, and fans were desperate to know what it was. They couldn't help but wonder if Noah was dealing with a loss, a tragedy that had shaken him to the core. Was there something personal in his life that he was trying to protect from the public eye? As the years passed, Noah's emotional struggles became more and more apparent. He began to show signs of depression, isolation, and grief, but still, he remained tight-lipped about what he was going through. This only fueled the curiosity and mystery surrounding his life. It was clear that something had happened to him. But what was it? Was it a death in the family, a personal loss he hadn't shared? Fans were left to speculate and piece together the clues, but no one could be certain of the full story. The truth, as it slowly began to come to light, was that Noah had been dealing with a personal tragedy that had affected him in ways that no one could have imagined. The loss he experienced was not just a simple moment of grief, it was something that changed him. It affected the way he saw the world, the way he interacted with his family, and the way he handled the pressures of living off the grid. It wasn't something that could be fixed with time or by simply moving on. It was something that required deep personal healing, and Noah wasn't ready to face it all at once. Instead, he chose to keep his pain hidden, not wanting to burden those around him with the weight he was carrying. The curiosity around Noah's life grew as fans tried to make sense of what was happening. As he continued to live in the wilderness, away from the cameras, people couldn't help but wonder how much of his story was still untold. What had happened to him? Was he ever going to open up about the tragedy that had affected him so deeply? His story was no longer just about surviving in Alaska, it was about surviving an emotional battle that no one had expected. The mystery surrounding Noah was not just about his personal life, but about his emotional journey as well. The pain he was going through was not something that could be solved with a simple conversation or a quick fix. It was a long, difficult road, and fans began to realize that Noah's struggles were far more complicated than they could have ever imagined. The deeper they dug, the more they realized that his journey was not just about survival in the wilderness, but about surviving within himself, dealing with the pain that had taken hold of him. The suspense around Noah's personal life continues to grow. People are still asking questions, still trying to understand what happened to him. Fans continue to be curious about his journey, hoping to learn more about the tragedy that changed his life. As Noah works through his emotional struggles, the mystery of his life only becomes more compelling, leaving everyone wondering what comes next in his story.